When people talk about soulmates, they usually mention fireworks, instant sparks, some dramatic aha moment. That wasn't how it was with Emily. With her, it was more like warmth spreading slowly on a cold day. The kind of heat that lingers, comforting, familiar. The kind that makes you forget what being cold felt like in the first place. We met at a mutual friend's New Year's Eve party in Boulder 3 years ago. I was 35. Well into the rhythm of my life. Engineering firm doing steadily, mortgage paid off, predictable routines. She was 31, radiant, laughing too loud at someone's bad joke, holding a glass of red wine like she owned the room. And in a way, she did. We started talking over drinks. She asked real questions about my work, my past, my thoughts on music and mid-century furniture. She didn't feign interest like so many others. She leaned in, listened, challenged me when I said something too comfortable. I found myself laughing more than I usually do, maybe even loosening up a little. That night, I drove home feeling like I'd just seen the first color in a black and white world. 3 months later, we were inseparable. Emily was unlike anyone I'd dated. She was creative and unpredictable. She danced barefoot in the kitchen and painted her nails while reading architectural digests. Her apartment was messy in a curated kind of way. Candles half-burned, walls full of art, plants thriving and somehow unkillable. She ran a boutique interior design firm with a friend. Small business growing fast. She said it stressed her out, but lit her up too. I like that. Passion is rare. Her world was texture, color, movement. Mine was structure, precision, data. We balanced each other out. Or at least I thought we did. In those first couple of years, we didn't fight about anything major. Some friction, sure. She teased me for being obsessively neat. I thought she could be too impulsive with her plans. But it never felt like more than harmless contrast. Our values, or so I believed, aligned where it mattered, especially when it came to honesty. I told her early on about my parents, about how I watched their marriage unravel slowly, with bitter silences and loud arguments over bills. How the divorce drained them emotionally and financially. My dad left the house, my mom kept it but couldn't afford it, and within a year, they were both drowning in separate piles of debt. The lesson was obvious, if painful. Love doesn't make you immune to disaster. Emily had listened to all of it, eyes soft, hand squeezing mine. She said she admired how I'd turned that trauma into discipline, how responsible I was. "You're safe," she told me once. "I didn't know how much I needed that until I met you." I believed her. By the time we got engaged, it felt like the natural next step. There wasn't a grand proposal, no hot air balloons or flash mobs. Just the two of us sitting on my back porch one crisp September evening, legs tangled under a blanket, a shared bottle of Merlot between us. I remember looking at her and thinking, this is it. She made the world feel lighter, more human. I asked her simply, "What do you think about making this forever?" She blinked, then laughed. "Is that your way of proposing, James?" I grinned, shrugged. "Do you want forever with me?" She leaned over and kissed me. "Yeah, I do." We shopped for rings together. She didn't want anything flashy, just something meaningful. A small diamond in a rose gold setting. Understated elegance, she called it. Everything about those months felt right. Her laugh still made me melt. Her flaws, disorganized, easily distracted, late to nearly everything, felt more like quirks than issues. Nothing serious, nothing that couldn't be worked with. We started planning the wedding 6 months out. It was going to be small, just close family and friends. A garden venue in Evergreen. String lights, live music, lots of greenery. Emily wanted it to feel like an enchanted evening, whatever that meant. I was happy to let her run with it. Planning wasn't my strength. We talked budgets, timelines, guest lists, and for a while things went smoothly. She took charge of the aesthetic. I handled the logistics. A true team. Until one afternoon, over lunch, I brought up the topic of a prenup. It wasn't sudden or awkward, or at least it wasn't meant to be. We were reviewing vendor quotes, going over some spreadsheets. I mentioned that I had an appointment with my lawyer the following week for business paperwork. That reminds me, I said casually. I was thinking it's probably smart if we also put together a prenup. Nothing intense, just something fair. You keep yours, I keep mine if things ever go sideways. Emily paused mid-bite. What? She said. Just a prenup, standard stuff. I've worked hard to build what I have. I'd just like it in writing that if things don't work out, we both walk away with what we brought in. No surprises. Her eyes narrowed, barely noticeable, but I saw it. You're already thinking about things not working out? No, I said quickly. That's not the point. It's not about expecting failure. It's about clarity, about being responsible, protecting what we've built individually before we build something together. She set her fork down slowly. Her voice stayed calm, but her tone shifted. I thought we trusted each other. We do. That's exactly why I think we can have this conversation like adults. There was a pause. Not long. Just long enough for the warmth in the room to thin out. We didn't fight. Not exactly. But something cracked that day. She didn't yell or storm off. She just said she needed to think about it and went quiet. For the first time in our relationship, the silence between us didn't feel companionable. It felt cold. That night I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling, wondering what had changed. The warmth hadn't gone, but it wasn't growing anymore either. The silence didn't go away. For the next few days, Emily acted like nothing had happened. She still kissed me good morning, still sent texts with hearts and inside jokes. But under all of it, there was a new tension, subtle but unmistakable, like walking into a room where someone had just been crying and pretending everything was fine. She didn't bring up the prenup, and truthfully, neither did I, at least not right away. I told myself she just needed space, time, that she was caught off guard, and given the chance to sit with it, she'd come around. We'd talk like we always did, openly, respectfully. That moment never came. A week later, I tried again. We were having dinner at home. Something easy, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables. Point. Emily was in a breezy mood, playing a jazz playlist and humming along as she moved around the kitchen. For a while, it felt normal, almost enough to make me believe I'd overreacted. But halfway through the meal, I brought it up again, gently. Hey, I said, setting down my fork. Can we talk about the prenup? I feel like we never really finished that conversation. Her smile disappeared like someone flipped a switch. I thought we did, she said. Not really. I just want to make sure we're both protected, that we're entering this with everything on the table. She didn't look at me, just kept slicing her food into tiny pieces. It just doesn't sit right with me, James. It makes everything feel conditional, like there's an escape plan. It's not about escaping, I said, trying to stay calm. It's about clarity, about keeping things simple and fair. I'm not asking for anything extreme, just to protect what we each had before we met. That's all. She finally looked up, eyes shaw. Do you really think I'd try to take your money if things went bad? I don't think anything, I said slowly. I just know that people change when things go wrong, even people who love each other. I've seen it happen. My name's not your mother, she snapped. That stung. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true in the most painful way. I told Emily everything about the divorce, how it destroyed not just the relationship between my parents, but their ability to recover financially or emotionally. My mother had begged the court to keep the house. My father had fought over retirement savings like they were war trophies. It became a battlefield of bank statements, resentment, and accusations. I didn't want to end up like that. I couldn't. Emily saw my expression shift and immediately softened. Her voice dropped, more sad than angry. I just thought this was supposed to be different. It can still be, I said, but different doesn't mean naive. Stop. I'm not shutting the door on anything. I'm asking for a window that opens if the smoke ever gets too thick. She sighed. You really think we'll get divorced someday? I hope not, I said. But if we don't, then the prenup never matters, right? She didn't answer, just stood up, took her plate, and walked into the kitchen. The sound of water running covered whatever else she might have said under her breath. That was the first time I felt a real wall between us. It wasn't dramatic. No yelling, no slamming doors. Just a slow shift in energy, a withdrawal. She started spending more time at her business partner's office. She stayed on her phone late into the night. Conversations drifted toward the surface again, like they had when we first met and didn't know each other well enough to ask hard questions. One night, I asked her directly, "Are you angry at me?" She looked up from her laptop and gave me a look that was all performance. "Of course not," she said. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. I began to notice other things. Mail addressed to her piling up unopened. A credit card statement slipped into her purse the second she saw me glance at it. She insisted on putting certain wedding expenses on her own cards, then missed payments, small ones, but enough to be noticeable. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off. "It's just bad timing. I had a client delay payment. No big deal." Another week passed. Then, too, I started to get a cold, sinking feeling in my stomach that I couldn't shake. It wasn't just the prenup anymore. It was the way money became a ghost between us. Something always hovering in the room, invisible but chilling. I talked to a close friend about it, Mike, my oldest friend from college. He's blunt, not always tactful but honest to a fault. "You think she's hiding something?" he asked, after I told him everything. "I don't know," I said, "but something's not right." It's not just emotional resistance anymore. It's secrecy, deflection. "You've got assets, man," Mike said. "You've built something real. You've been careful your whole life, so you don't get screwed like your parents did. Don't let your feelings override that." I didn't need him to tell me that, but it helped hearing it out loud. That night, I asked her again, more directly this time. We were on the couch. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. "Emily," I said, "can I ask you something? And can you promise to be completely honest with me?" She turned toward me slowly. "Okay. Are you in debt?" She didn't answer right away. She looked down at her lap, picked at a loose thread on the sleeve of her sweatshirt. The silence dragged. "Yes," she finally said. The thread snapped. Everything shifted in that moment. She told me she had credit card debt, a lot of it. "How much?" I asked, afraid of the answer. Her voice was barely audible. 92,000. I felt like the room tilted, like gravity had shifted and I was sliding toward a cliff I hadn't seen before. She tried to explain, said it had accumulated over years, said she'd had medical bills, unexpected expenses, some bad choices, said she was working on it, that she didn't tell me because she didn't want me to see her differently. And maybe I didn't, but I did see us differently, because this wasn't about the number. It was about the hiding, the evasion, the belief that I didn't deserve to know something that could legally and financially affect my life. I asked her why she never told me. "I was embarrassed," she whispered. I nodded. I believed that, but embarrassment doesn't make secrets harmless. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, though I was. Not because I was afraid, though I was that too. It was because for the first time in 3 years, I didn't know who I was building a life with. Everything had seemed right, but maybe it had only seemed. After Emily told me about the debt, there was no shouting, no plates thrown, no drama, just quiet. Too quiet. I thought maybe now that it was out, we could talk openly. Start from this raw, exposed place and build something real. I told myself that couples went through hard things all the time. That $92,000 was a big number, but love was bigger. Trust was stronger. But love isn't always enough. And trust, once cracked, doesn't heal with just words. We didn't talk about it again for 3 days. Not because I didn't want to, but because every time I tried, Emily changed the subject, or left the room, or said she was tired, or busy, or had a headache. I could feel her slipping behind walls I didn't even know were there before. And the more I tried to pretend things were fine, the more I started noticing the cracks. The mail started piling up again. I saw a letter from a get collection agency mixed in with the circulars one morning. Emily grabbed it before I could say anything, smiling too brightly, saying she'd take care of it. She tossed it in her purse. It didn't come up again. 2 days later, she forgot to pay the florist's deposit. It was one of the few wedding tasks she had volunteered to handle solo. She'd picked the vendor, scheduled the meeting, promised to send the down payment. It was a small thing, but when I called the florist to confirm a detail, they said they'd never received payment. I asked Emily about it that night. She looked up from her phone and blinked, as if trying to place what I was talking about. "Oh, yeah, I meant to do that today," she said. "Just got slammed at work." I waited for her to say more, like maybe she'd apologize or ask me to help, but she just went back to scrolling. A few weeks ago, I wouldn't have thought twice. Everyone drops a ball sometimes. But now every little oversight felt like another layer of fog between us. I tried to help. I really did. One night, I offered to sit down and look over her finances with her. "We could make a plan," I said gently. "Maybe work through some options together. I know a great financial advisor, and I'm more than willing to help." She cut me off. "James, I don't need to be rescued. That's not what I'm trying to do." "Then stop acting like you're my fixer." "I'm not. I'm trying to be your partner." Her eyes flashed. "Then trust me to handle it." She turned and left the room. I stood there, staring at the half-empty wine glass she left on the counter, and realized I was no longer allowed in the parts of her life that mattered most. A week after that, I ran into her business partner at a networking event. Melissa was friendly, outgoing, dressed in a crisp navy blazer and sneakers that probably cost more than my first car. We'd met a handful of times before, always polite but brief. That night, she found me by the bar, drink in hand. "How's wedding life?" she asked with a knowing smile. I tried to fake it. "Busy," she nodded. "Emily's been pretty stressed lately. Sorry if she's been a bit scattered. We're under some pressure at the office." I looked at her. "Pressure?" Melissa sipped her drink, then leaned in a little, her tone more confidential now. "She didn't tell you? Our last 2 clients defaulted on payments. It's been a nightmare keeping the cash flow steady." My heart dropped. "No, she didn't mention that." Melissa raised an eyebrow. "Well, I'm sure she's just trying not to worry you." She smiled again and walked off. I couldn't sleep that night. Again, everything was colliding now. The missed payments, the hidden letters, the secrecy about her business, the debt, the refusal to talk, and hovering over it all, the prenup, still unspoken, unresolved, radioactive. I stared at the ceiling and tried to make sense of it all. If she was overwhelmed, why not ask for help? If she trusted me, why lie? And if she didn't trust me, then what were we even? The next morning, I brought up the prenup again, not in a confrontational way, just a quiet moment over coffee. "I think we need to talk about the agreement again." She set her mug down too hard. The coffee sloshed. "Why are you so obsessed with this?" she snapped. "I'm not obsessed, Emily, but I'm serious about protecting what I've worked for." She laughed, bitter, short. "You act like I'm some kind of threat." "I'm not saying that. I'm saying I don't want my house, my retirement, my business, dragged into something I didn't help create if this ever falls apart." She stood up. "So you don't believe in us?" I looked at her, feeling something hollow open up inside me. "I believe in us. But belief isn't the same as blind faith." She stared at me, arms crossed, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. "I need to know," I said softly, "that if this doesn't work out, you won't leave me carrying debt I didn't create. That's not selfish. That's just reality." She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, finally, she whispered, "You really think I'd do that to you?" I didn't know what to say, because I hadn't thought she'd lie, either. We didn't speak for the rest of the day. She went to the office. I stayed home, cleaned the garage, ate dinner alone. Thought about calling off the wedding for the first time. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I didn't know who I was loving anymore. That night, I called my father. We hadn't talked in weeks. He lives down in Arizona now, retired, spending most of his time golfing and drinking cheap beer on a screened-in porch. Dad, I said, how did you know it was over? He was quiet on the other end for a second. With your mom? He asked. Yeah, he sighed. When I realized we were no longer solving problems, we were hiding them from each other. I stared at the floor. I think I might be there. There was a long pause. You're not your mother, he said, and she's not me. But you've got a gut. Trust it. That's something we both ignored for too long. I didn't tell Emily about the call. Didn't tell her I had made an appointment with a lawyer to go over prenup options again. Didn't tell her that I'd started running financial background checks. Nothing invasive, just what I could legally do on my own. I didn't find anything criminal, but I did find more debt, more accounts, more late payments. She was drowning and pretending she could swim. And the worst part, she wouldn't even let me throw her a rope. The next weekend, we had dinner with her mom. Margaret Ross was a perfectly coiffed storm in heels. From the moment we sat down at the restaurant, I could feel tension in the air. Emily hadn't told her about the prenup conversation in detail, but she knew enough. Halfway through the meal, Margaret set down her fork and looked me dead in the eye. James, she said sweetly, I hear you're thinking of making Emily sign some kind of business contract before the wedding. Emily froze. Her face went pale. I glanced at her, then back at Margaret. I think it's reasonable to be clear about financial boundaries, that's all. Margaret narrowed her eyes. Isn't love supposed to be about sharing, not counting? It's about trust, I said calmly. And trust includes transparency. She scoffed. Sounds to me like you're expecting failure. I didn't answer. Because maybe I was. Or maybe I'd just started being honest enough to prepare for the worst, even while hoping for the best. After dinner, Emily didn't come home with me. She said she needed space, said she was tired of being interrogated, and I stood there on the sidewalk, watching her get into her car, feeling like the future I had imagined was slipping through my fingers like dust. She had every chance to bring me into her struggle, but instead, she made me feel like the enemy. And all I ever wanted was to be her partner. The night Emily didn't come home, I waited up for hours. At first, I told myself she was just cooling off, driving around, maybe staying at a friend's place for the night to prove a point. By midnight, I stopped pretending. She wasn't just upset, she was withdrawing. The next morning, I found a short text on my phone. Staying at Melissa's. Need space. Please don't make this worse. No, I love you. No apology. No attempt to explain. Just space. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence. No calls. No messages. Nothing. I went to work like a robot, answering emails, fixing minor crises, pretending not to notice how hollow everything felt. At night, I sat in the house we were supposed to build a life in, surrounded by floral samples, RSV key cards, and untouched wedding gifts, and wondered if it was all already over. I didn't chase her. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something told me that if I did, I'd be giving in to a dynamic I couldn't live with, a dynamic where silence was power and communication was punishment. On the fourth night, she came home. She didn't knock or announce herself, just walked through the door, keys in one hand, purse in the other, like it was any other Thursday. I stood up from the couch as she came into the living room. She looked tired. Her hair was pulled back hastily, eyes ringed with makeup she hadn't bothered to fix. Hey, I said softly. She didn't reply, just set her bag down and crossed her arms. I guess you've made up your mind, she said. I blinked. About what? This prenup. This whole plan to protect yourself from me. Her voice wasn't hangry anymore. It was flat, like something inside her had gone quiet too. I haven't made up my mind, I said. I've just realized I need it. That doesn't mean I want to hurt you. She laughed bitterly. Of course not. You just want to sign a contract before you marry me, just in case. No, I want to sign a contract because I'm marrying you, because I believe in transparency, because we're a team and I don't want any more surprises. Her jaw clenched. So now I'm a liar? I shook my head. Emily, I don't think you're a bad person, but hiding that kind of debt, avoiding the conversation every time it comes up, that's not partnership. I didn't tell you because I was ashamed, she said. You think I wanted to admit I screwed up that badly? You, with your perfect credit score and your paid-off house and your organized little retirement plans? I didn't want to watch you look at me differently. I didn't look at you differently, I said. I looked at the situation differently. There's a difference. She folded her arms tighter. It's just money. No, I said firmly. It's not just money. It's honesty. It's trust. It's whether or not I can count on you to stand beside me when things get hard, and to tell me when they're already hard. The tension built like a pressure cooker. I've spent my whole life trying to make sure I never end up like my parents, I said. They didn't plan for disaster, and it ruined them. I'm not going to do that. I won't. So you're punishing me for their mistakes? I'm protecting both of us. No, she snapped. You're protecting yourself. That's what this has always been about. I took a breath. What would you do if the roles were reversed? She blinked. If I had $90,000 in credit card debt and didn't tell you until the last minute, I continued, and I asked you to sign something saying you wouldn't be held responsible for any of it if things fell apart, would you do it? She was quiet. Would you? I pressed. She looked away. I don't know. You don't know? I asked. That's your answer? I wouldn't have asked, she said softly, because love isn't a business negotiation. No, I said, but marriage is also a legal contract. We can't pretend it's not. The room went still. She sat down across from me, shoulders slumped, eyes dark. You think I'm going to ruin you, she said. That's what this is really about. No, I said. I think you already lied to me, and I'm trying not to let that be the end of us. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just looked at me with a kind of detached sadness I hadn't seen in her before. I can't sign something that assumes we'll fail, she said. And I can't marry someone who refuses to protect what I've built. That was it. The line was drawn. For a moment, I thought she might reach across it, might say she understood, might ask how we could make it fair, might suggest sitting down with a mediator or a lawyer together, something. But instead, she got up. I need to think, she said, and walked back out the door. The wedding was 6 weeks away. Invitations had been sent. Deposits paid. Flights booked. Family members excited. And yet I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. We weren't planning a marriage. We were avoiding a crisis. I sat in the guest bedroom that night, her wedding dress hanging behind the door like a ghost, and made a list. Not a pros and cons list, a truth list. Things I knew. I loved her. She loved me, maybe. She'd lied. She wouldn't sign. She wouldn't talk about the debt. She wouldn't let me help. She wouldn't compromise. She was burying her problems in silence and emotion. And then I wrote one final line. This is not someone I can build a future with. It nearly broke me. The next day I called my lawyer. I asked him to draft a simple agreement, not punitive, not cruel, just clear. My house stays mine. My retirement and business assets stay mine. Her debt stays hers. Any jointly acquired assets during the marriage would be split fairly. He said it was more than reasonable. Honestly, he said, you're offering her more than most people in your position would. When I showed it to Emily, she didn't Eve. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. That her daughter had hidden a mountain of debt and refused to take accountability for it? That I had done everything short of abandoning my own values to make it work? That I still loved her, but couldn't marry someone who saw a contract as an insult instead of protection? None of it would matter. Margaret wasn't looking for understanding. She was looking for someone to blame. Emily and I didn't speak for a week. The silence was heavy, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was full of finality. I had made my offer. I had tried. But love isn't love if it only works when things are easy. And Emily had made it clear she didn't want a partner who set boundaries. She wanted someone who would ignore the storm and pretend it was sunshine, and I couldn't do that. Not again. Not after everything I'd already learned about what happens when two people walk into marriage with hope, but no clarity. I loved her, but I couldn't save her from herself. And I wasn't going to sacrifice my future for someone who didn't want to share the truth of theirs. I waited a full week before reaching out again. Not because I stopped caring, but because I needed to be sure that what I was feeling wasn't just fear or wounded pride. I needed to clear the fog of heartbreak and stand in something solid. On the 8th day, I sent her a message. Emily, I love you. I don't want to lose you. But I also can't marry someone who refuses to have hard conversations. Can we talk, really talk, just one more time? She replied an hour later, tomorrow, 6 p.m., I'll come to the house. No heart, no warmth. But she said yes. That had to mean something. I spent the whole day rehearsing what I'd say, not as some strategic pitch, but because I didn't want to be angry when I saw her. I wanted to be the man she fell in love with, the man who had patience, the man who offered partnership, not punishment. When she arrived, she looked tired, like sleep hadn't come easy. So did I. We sat at opposite ends of the couch, a gulf between us. I'm not here to fight, I said quietly. I just want to find a way forward that feels safe for both of us. She said nothing, just stared at me like I was a stranger. I took a breath. I've been thinking, I continued. If this prenup feels like such a betrayal to you, maybe we need help. A third party. Someone to help us talk about this in a way that doesn't feel so personal. You want to go to couples therapy? She asked, her voice flat. Yes, I said. I think it might help. I think we're not hearing each other anymore. She let out a short laugh. We're not hearing each other because you already made up your mind. You don't trust me. That's not true, I said. I'm here. I've stayed here. I've given you space. I've offered compromises. She looked away. I offered to sign something that clearly says your debt is yours, that what I owned before we met stays mine. Then she said, without looking back, maybe you were never the man I thought you were. And then she was gone. That night, I sat in the dark for a long time, the kind of dark where your own heartbeat sounds loud. I thought about what she'd said, about whether I had changed, whether I'd let fear poison something good, whether I was becoming my father, cold, calculating, emotionally unreachable. But then I remembered something else. I hadn't asked for anything she didn't already know I valued. I had been consistent, honest, patient. What changed wasn't me. It was the illusion. The next morning, her mother called again. This time, I answered. James, Margaret began without greeting. I'm calling because Emily is devastated. I know, I said calmly. So am I. She told me you're refusing to marry her unless she signs some contract that treats her like a threat. I'm refusing to marry someone who refuses to talk about massive financial consequences. There's a difference. She's ashamed, Margaret snapped. You're turning shame into leverage. I've offered therapy. I've offered compromise. I've offered time. What I haven't been offered is honesty. She made a mistake. No, she made a series of decisions, Margaret, and then she lied about them. Margaret went quiet. I almost thought she'd hung up. Then she said, more softly, she's not like you. She didn't grow up with that kind of stability. She doesn't know how to handle people who think this clinically. This isn't about clinical, I said. This is about building a foundation that isn't made of denial. She exhaled sharply. I'm just saying, don't throw away something real over a piece of paper. And that's when I realized something. Margaret didn't understand. Emily didn't either. They didn't see this as two people trying to build a future. They saw it as me protecting myself from her. And in a way, they were right. But what they missed was this. If the roles were reversed, I would have signed. Not because I didn't love her, but because I did. Because I would have wanted her to feel safe with me. Because I would have wanted her to see me as someone who solved problems, not created them. And I was beginning to accept the truth. Emily didn't want a partner. She wanted someone who would absorb the chaos without comment. without structure, without limits. And that wasn't love. That was dependency wearing perfume. That weekend, my best friend Mike flew in. He'd already bought tickets for the wedding. We went out for a beer, and I told him everything. He listened, quiet for once. Then he said, "You already know the answer, man. You're just waiting for it to hurt a little less." He was right. On Sunday night, I sat down and made the calls. Venue, vendors, photographer. I explained that the wedding was canceled, that I understood I wouldn't get deposits back, that I was sorry for the inconvenience. Each one was professional, kind, distant. It felt strangely formal, like dismantling a dream one transaction at a time. Then I called my family. My mother cried. My father didn't say much. And finally, I sent a message to Emily. "I'm canceling the wedding. I still care about you, but I can't keep pretending this is a partnership. I hope someday you understand. Take care of yourself." She didn't respond. The following day, she came to pick up her things. No tears, no yelling, just quiet, mechanical. I offered to help carry boxes to her car. She declined. We stood on the front step when she was done. She looked up at me, just for a second. Her face unreadable. Then she said simply, "You chose your money." And I replied, "No, I chose myself." Then I closed the door, and this time she didn't come back. The illusion was gone, and in its place, finally, was the truth. I hadn't been in love with a woman. I had been in love with a version of her she wanted me to see. And now that the mask had fallen, all that remained was a mess I couldn't fix, and a heart that still wanted to. The day after Emily moved out, the house felt wrong. Not empty, just off. Her coffee mug was still in the dishwasher. A cardigan she always wore when she was cold was draped over the back of the couch. A stray bobby pin glinted on the bathroom counter. I found one of her earrings beneath the bed. It was the kind of silence that wasn't peaceful. It was punctuated. Everything around me whispered, she was here, and now she wasn't. I thought canceling the wedding would bring relief. In some ways, it did. The anxiety that had been clenching my chest for weeks slowly loosened. There were no more calls from vendors. No more emotional minefields. No more wondering what version of Emily I'd get on any given day. But in place of that dread came something different. Grief. Not for the relationship, exactly, but for the future I thought I was walking into. The imagined dinners. The weekends spent fixing up the house together. The children we'd only vaguely discussed but already pictured. I had to grieve the idea of her, the woman I believed she was, and that was harder than I expected. People started calling, friends, relatives, some with sympathy, some with questions, a few just fishing for gossip. My aunt from Chicago said gently, "It's better now than later." One of my groomsmen sent me a text, "You okay, man? I knew something was off that night." She walked out of game night mid-sentence. Even my mom, ever the cautious one, called and said, "You did the right thing. I just wish it didn't have to hurt so much." But no one said I told you so. They didn't need to. I lost a lot of money. Thousands in deposits, non-refundable expenses, flights for my family from Oregon and Arizona that couldn't be changed. I didn't fight it. I didn't argue with vendors or plead with the airlines. The money was gone. It hurt, but it wasn't the RIA. The real cost was the months of believing we were aligned. The energy I poured into planning a life with someone who couldn't even be honest about her present, let alone our future. It was the time, the trust, and the small voice in my head that still whispered, "What if you'd waited just a little longer?" I kept expecting her to call, to apologize, to say she'd changed her mind, that she finally understood, that she was ready to talk like partners. She never did. Melissa texted me once. Just a short note. "She's hurting, but she won't admit it. I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. I boxed up the wedding things a week later. The floral samples, the guest list spreadsheets, the candle holders we were going to put on the tables. Her dress was gone, of course, but her handwriting was still on a few RSVP envelopes. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. So I packed everything into a storage container and carried it to the garage. It felt like burying something. A few nights later, I drove up into the mountains. No music, just silence and the hum of the engine. I parked at one of our old spots near Lookout Mountain, where we used to bring sandwiches and sit on the hood of my car, where she'd once said, "This feels like the rest of my life." I sat there for hours, staring into the dark valley, wondering how it had all gone so wrong, so fast. And then I realized it hadn't gone fast. It had just taken me a long time to see clearly. Emily hadn't destroyed anything. She hadn't stolen from me. She hadn't cheated. She hadn't screamed or thrown plates or done anything to make this easy to walk away from. That's what made it so hard. Because the danger wasn't obvious. It was invisible. Quiet avoidance, emotional misdirection, charming denial. The willingness to let love become a shield instead of a bridge. I loved her, but she wouldn't meet me halfway. And partnership isn't love alone. It's effort. It's true. It's accountability. When I got home that night, I wrote a letter I never sent. Emily, I didn't fall out of love with you. I just ran out of places to go where love could live. I tried to meet you where you were, but you kept changing the map. I hope you find peace with yourself. I hope you learn how to let people in before it's too late. And I hope someday you understand that choosing to protect myself wasn't about hurting you. It was about finally choosing to stop hurting me. James. After that, I started letting go, slowly. The house began to feel normal again. I rearranged some furniture, donated a few things she left behind, bought myself a new set of dishes, because why not? It felt like a new start, even if it hurt. I didn't date. I wasn't ready. But I started spending time with people again. Friends, family, people who knew me outside the frame of that relationship, and little by little, I remembered what calm felt like. The hardest part wasn't losing her. It was losing who I was when I was with her, the version of me that still believed love could fix anything. But love can't fix what someone refuses to acknowledge. It can't outrun lies, or cover up debt, or stand in for responsibility. It's not a shield. It's not an excuse. It's a commitment to truth, even when the truth is hard. One morning, I walked past the closet where I'd stored all the wedding boxes. I opened it, and then I closed it. Not because I couldn't face it, but because I no longer needed to. Letting go wasn't a moment. It was a choice I had to keep making, every day, every hour, until the weight got lighter, and the silence became peace. It's been 6 weeks since I canceled the wedding. The house doesn't feel haunted anymore. There are still echoes, memories stored in the smallest places, the corner of the couch where she used to tuck her feet, the favorite mug she forgot in the back of the cabinet. But they don't sting the way they used to. They just X. Like everything else we left behind. I still think about her, not constantly, not painfully, but sometimes in the quiet stretches of a Sunday morning, or when a song comes on that she used to hum in the car. I don't push those thoughts away. I let them come and go like weather. Love, even when it ends, deserves to be remembered. But not all memories are homes. Some are just crossroads, and I walked away from this one alive. I've learned that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just sitting with the weight of your own boundaries and refusing to set them down, even when someone begs you to. Even when it would be easier to give in, to apologize for your standards, to pretend the water isn't rising. Strength is leaving the door unlocked in case someone wants to meet you where you are, but not chasing them when they walk away. Emily walked away, and I didn't run after her. There's no big epiphany here, no sweeping revelation or Instagram-worthy quote that sums it all up. Just this: I loved someone. She couldn't be honest with me. I chose to let go, and I survived. I've started hiking again. At first, just short walks, then longer trails. There's something about the rhythm of your own breath and boots on dirt that reminds you your body still knows how to move forward, even when your heart's not quite ready. Sometimes, I think about the life I almost had. The wedding, the photos, the shared bank accounts, and the subtle compromises that might have eaten me alive slowly, quietly, over years. I think about how close I came to trading peace for potential, and I'm grateful I didn't. A friend asked me recently if I still believe in marriage. I told him yes, but not at the cost of myself. Not with someone who sees accountability as an insult. Not with someone who thinks love means never having to talk about hard things. I believe in marriage the same way I believe in building a house. If the foundation's cracked, you don't keep decorating. You star. Emily and I haven't spoken since she moved out. No texts, no calls, no late-night messages asking if I miss her. And strangely, that silence is the final answer I needed, because if you really lose something precious, you reach for it. She didn't, and that told me everything. The other day, I found the prenup draft still sitting in my desk drawer. I didn't shred it, didn't burn it in some symbolic gesture of closure. I just filed it away, not as a relic of failure, but as proof that I stood my ground, that I was willing to love and protect at the same time. I don't know what comes next. I'm not rushing to fill the space she left behind. There's a strange kind of dignity in taking your time, in choosing wholeness over noise, in rebuilding, not because you're broken, but because you finally cleared the debris. This story doesn't end with someone new. Not yet. It ends with me, sitting at the kitchen table on a quiet morning, coffee in hand. Sunlight catching the edge of the counter. No chaos, no secrets. No one asking me to shrink so they can feel bigger. Just stillness, just breath, just me. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough.
This audio is made with Audio Toolkit for Windows Store, downloaded for free now.